G'day everyone, it's Kenny from Delivered Concepts. Tonight out in the workshop I'm going to continue with the handlebar modifications. What I've currently got is the handlebar marked to length and I've set it up in the bandsaw ready to go. A little bit difficult to set it up on camera so that you can see what needs to be done at the same time while staying out the camera angle. But to give you an idea, I'm going to be taking approximately 200mm off the total bar length. I've already marked out on the bar where I need to cut. There's a pencil line here and a pencil line there, and this is to be the end of the socket, and this is going to be how far the overlap has to go inside the handlebar to give it factory strength. I'll make the cut now and we'll move on to the next stage. A handy little tip when you're doing bandsawing work, especially if you've got one of these type of machines with a wide throat in the middle which allows you for the multiple cutting angle, use a piece of sacrificial material. It's a little bit narrower than the target material you go to clamp. It acts as a really good bridge to go between each side of the table, stops your product from falling down in the middle and getting an inaccurate cut. Alright, let's switch over to the other workbench and we'll continue. Okay, back over to the workbench and just wanted to talk around the next steps. So as you can see here, this is the 25mm of overlap that I've actually set and allowed for when the other piece telescopes in. Whenever you make a cut, it's always very important to deburr. Found this fantastic tool online which allows you just to deburr both the inside and the outside of the tube, depending on which way it's it. So it has a cone up the center and a female on the outside, so you can get both inside and out. Give both ends a really quick deburr, because the last thing we need is a little piece of swarf catching that, because that's going to affect our target size. If you remember on the previous video, I talked around whether or not there'd be a coating inside the tube. It looks like in this particular case the powder coat doesn't go far enough down inside the tube to cause an issue with fitment, so that's pretty exciting. And already you can see, so this is the one that we machined earlier, already you can see that that's actually nearly a tap fit. Now when it comes to actually setting this up to keeping everything in alignment and in the same orientation, that's going to be absolutely critical, relying on the bar work to do all the alignment for us rather than trying to do it with the tape measure. I'll deburr this other end and then we'll continue on. So as part of trying to pass on what I've learned over the years, I thought a couple of interesting tools I could show you that certainly help if you're new to fabrication. This particular tool is called a bristle disc, and what it is, it's a abrasive impregnated wheel. These little fingers actually move surprisingly well, and when you spin the unit up you'll see they flare a little bit, so they've actually got quite a fair bit of give to them. If you're trying to dress down a part and take off material, they won't actually take away from the base material, but they will remove a lot of your coatings, including zinc, galvanizing powder coating, and some of your clear coats. Brilliant for using on things like steel and mild steel. They do work on aluminium, but you can get a yellow version of these which is a little bit softer and better suited for aluminium. I'll switch over to hyperlapse now so that you can actually see how quick it actually works. We're going to take the chrome off the extension bars and we're going to dress down some of the powder coat on the handlebars themselves. Another great product that can also help is these blue strip discs. They're a Norton brand called Vortex. There's also ones that are red and green. There's quite a few different variations of this. This particular one's meant for blending welds on aluminium and stainless, but I find it equally does a fantastic job on taking the powder coat off things as well as the coatings. I'll show you this one now. So in my opinion, I think that the blue strip disc does a much better job. So that's the blue strip disc end, and this is the 2-inch grinder. As you can see, the 2-inch grinder's got quite a lot of steps in it, whereas the blue disc tends to feather a bit more. Off camera I'll go and tidy both of these up to the same standard, and then we'll come back for the next section to start joining them together. Righto, so we're up to the next stage now, and I'm going to try and insert the handlebar extensions. This is a great opportunity to reuse the inner mandrel, because that'll help when I'm trying to tap it in. Inner mandrel will transfer all the force to the entire edge of the tube. Even if my hammer blows are a little bit off square, the inner mandrel will actually hold that pipe in the correct orientation. What I'm going to do is try and put it into the handlebar, try and give it a little bit of wiggle. As I said, I did make this incredibly tight, so the first few blows are just going to be with a dead blade hammer, just to start. At this point it's starting to get a little bit tight for the dead blow, so I'm going to switch over to the ball peen. Really starting to get quite snug now on this joint, so I'm just going to invert it and use the weight of the bench to start absorbing some of those hammer blows. Righto, so it took a little bit of effort off camera using the mandrel and the heavier hammer just to try and seat it. But if we come in now and have a look at the end results that we've managed to achieve, you can actually come all the way up and it's a nice square solid seated shoulder. There's a slight taper between those two. I factored the correct length in when I worked out those tapers, so the ends are actually a little bit too long, so we'll be able to cut them off. You did see a little bit of ballooning on this end of the tube. I forgot to use a mandrel on this one, but when I used it on the second one, you get a bit of like how smooth that is compared to the other. But I allowed for this to be trimmed off by up to 10 to 15 mil, so I don't think it'll be a problem. We're going to move over to the welding bench soon and get ready to start plug welding and perimeter welding. This next stage could perhaps be a little bit of a beginner's trick, but I thought I'd show it anyway. You know how much I like using tape for most of my projects, as you've seen in some of my other videos and posting. A tip for trying to get 4 equal hole spacings around the outside perimeter on a round piece of tube. One of the best bets is take a piece of tape, wrap it all around, paying close attention to make sure it's properly aligned. Go all the way around, like so. Take a razor blade, split it anywhere over the top where the joint is, and then when you peel back the excess tape, now what you have is a perfect length of the outside circumference of the circle. Transfer that over to the workbench. Once you've transferred over the bench, it's quite easy to grab out a ruler. So in this particular example, the outside circumference of this tube is nearly spot on 80 millimeters. What it allows us to do is we can mark 4 equal points, which will represent the 4 equal holes that we have to drill. So that's marked out. If we do a hole at each end, which when these two tape lines touch together, that'll be the opposite side, and they'll be the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock positions. Something else I like to do as well, and it doesn't have to be super precise, is mark where the center of your holes are going to go. Transfer that over with your pencil and ruler. Now you have a perfect punch template to transfer back over to the pipe. At some point I lost audio and video during the last stages of this project. What I end up doing is putting in 8 plug welds into each side of the handlebars, file finishing the plug welds back to smooth, using a little bit of emery tape just to improve the surface finish, and then as you can see by the finished shots, absolutely seamless transition between the two handlebars, incredibly strong with a good 25mm of press fit overlap in each side, and then dressed ready to go back to the customer. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.